Hello and welcome to the Life at Leyton podcast with me, Sarah Glanville, as your host. Here at Leyton UK, we know our people are more than just their job. The careers of our people are part of their unique life, and who they are as a whole person is what fundamentally contributes to their success and the success of our business. In the podcast, we'll spend time with our exceptional people from across the business. And in each episode, we'll look to explore the people behind the job titles, the unique and brilliant stories that make them who they are. Today's podcast episode is a special one. This was the only way we could think to end a month that has celebrated starting conversations about men's mental and physical health. In episode 15, I host a panel interview with 5 of our male colleagues from across Leyton UK. We discuss what Movember means to them, why it's so important to see the business take part in Movember, how my guests handle working in a high-performing culture, and what advice they each have for men who are struggling. A huge thank you from me and the team for each of our panel guests' participation. Hankey, Sam Coleman, Luwis Gunarathne, Steve Goss and Jacob Davies. It's a brave step to talk openly in this format, especially about a topic like men's mental and physical well-being. I'm sure the content in this podcast will reach men who really need it, and that is a really special thing. So thank you all for tuning in. Grab yourself a coffee and get ready to be inspired by the people that are Leyton UK. Hello everyone, welcome to the Life at Leyton podcast. Thank you all for joining me today. We're doing a little bit something different on today's podcast, and we're having a panel discussion around Movember. So to kick us off, do you want to start introducing yourself? Steve, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'm Steve Goss. I work on the sales side of the business, and I'm based out the London office.
Thank you, Steve. Nice to have you here. Jack?
Yeah, I'm Jack, based out of Manchester and work in the sales development department.
Jacob?
Yeah, hi everyone, it's Jacob Davies. I work in the London office and I work in sales.
Thanks, Jake. And Sam?
My name is Sam Coleman. I also work in sales, the same as everyone else, and I'm in London as well.
And finish off with Luwis.
Hey, I'm Luwis Gunarathne. I work in sales as well. I'm in the London office.
Great. Thank you all for joining us on the podcast today. I think this is going to be a really interesting episode and a bit of a discussion on Movember. So I think the best place for us to start is to really find out what Movember means to you all personally and why you think it's important for Leyton to be involved in Movember. Jack, do you want to start us off on that one?
Yeah, so for me, I started really getting involved in Movember probably a couple of years ago. It was personally when I was feeling a bit low and a bit down. And I was very lucky. I had a really good group of friends who you could really talk to and be quite open, but I know not everybody has that. So it was kind of to show that people, it's like a very subtle way to kind of say if people are struggling, you could be an ally, you could be someone who could talk to. On the other side of that, even recently, I've had people I know who've really been down, and this time of year especially, when the weather changes, we get to work, it's dark, we leave work, it's dark. So yeah, just a light-hearted way to really try and let people know that you're there for them, you understand, you'll speak with them, and it's for a great cause. It's not just men's mental health, it's loads of other causes that really do affect men, like prostate cancer, etc.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Jack. How about you, Steve?
Yeah, hi Sarah. I think for me it's quite close to home really. Movember. Firstly it gives me an excuse to grow a horrible bit of facial hair, which makes the kids chuckle a bit. But I think for me, my dad was diagnosed with prostate cancer probably about 14 or so years ago now. Thankfully, he was relatively sort of young and reasonably sort of young for his age and healthy and fit, and he's come through it. He's been in remission now for about 14 years, but it really hammered it home. I mean, at the time, I was a lot younger, and you kind of look up at, I suppose, at the key people in your life and your parents and your dad in particular. If you're a bloke's one of them, where you kind of think they're invincible, and then you kind of get that news that actually they're not invincible and there's something quite seriously wrong that needs to be sorted quite quickly, it just makes it very real. And then I think obviously the Movember sort of movement, it's got more and more popular over the years. Probably beards and moustaches have come back into fashion as well, I suppose. So it's worked quite nicely in that respect. And something that I'm very happy to be a part of and to help support. And as I said, if it just raises that awareness and gets on the agenda of someone who maybe needs to be checked or is at high risk or should be getting screened, then it's absolutely worth doing and worth looking daft for a month, in my opinion. So
yeah, for sure. I think it is. A lot of people get into it because they have a like personal connection to something that's happened within their life, and it's a great way to show support. Sam, what does Movember mean for you personally, and why do you think that it's important for Leyton to be involved in supporting?
Similar to Steve, to be honest. My granddad unfortunately died of prostate cancer when I was sort of 15, 16. So when I was actually old enough to be able to grow some facial hair, I started supporting it from the age of about 18, 19. But the thing that really triggered me was actually the mental health side of it. For anyone that knows me in London office, they know how sort of passionate I've been behind this. There was a guy that I played rugby with who was the same position as me, same name as me. He was much older than me. He was much better than me. He was, brilliant rugby player. And he unfortunately suffered from lots of concussions. And as it's now sort of quite commonly known in sport, especially in NFL and rugby, the long-term effects of that are actually quite significant. Unfortunately for him, he went through this period of about 6-7 months of being depressed, turning up to training and couldn't get out of his van, and he didn't know what was wrong with him, and none of us knew this was going on. We just assumed that he was working late, he couldn't make training, whatever. And his girlfriend pushed him to doing an interview in our local newspaper, and that's when everyone found out what was going on with him. And it was a really scary thing to see someone 2 or 3 times a week and have absolutely no idea what's going on in his head. And it was a real wake-up call to me, and I just thought, wow, we need to, and as a team we've always done it ever since, to show support to him and other people. And there's unfortunately been a few suicides in our rugby club as well. So I just think it's a really important environment to stand up and not take the mick out of someone that's feeling down, or do you know what I mean? I think it's something that's overlooked quite often in a blokey, manly environment. And I just think for 1 month of the year to just let your guard down is quite a big thing, quite an important thing to do. And if I can help someone feel a little bit better by growing a stupid moustache, then I'll do it.
Yeah, it's a very visible show of support, and I think it's really evolved over the years from quite focused on prostate health and men's physical health, and it's now very inclusive to men's mental health as well, which is so important. Jake, do you want to tell us your reason for personally being involved in Movember?
No, I saw Movember actually come to light personally about 4 years ago, and I do think it's incredibly important that we actually sort of bring up men's mental health. I think I actually saw yesterday on a stat by NHS that only 36% of referrals to NHS talking therapies are men. So it just really shows the significance on actually bringing to light sort of problems and speaking about them and having support systems in place. And I do think once you share something with someone, it's far easier to break down as a problem than just keeping it hidden and tucked away. But yeah, I do think it's an incredibly important thing to actually shed light to such a serious topic that isn't talked about enough between men.
Yeah, that's a really interesting statistic as well there, Jake. Thank you for sharing that. Lewis, do you want to wrap this question up and tell us what Movember means to you personally, and why you think it's important that we're involved as a company at Leyton?
Yeah, I mean, with mental health as a whole, personally, the reason I took part is because I've had very close family members who've had mental health issues over the years. I've seen how it goes from good to bad real quick. I've seen the effects it has on other family members and everyone around you. The saddest thing is that the people who are affected are the ones who actually don't know that they're hurting. And yeah, I mean, it's not something I talk about quite often because it's very, very, very close to me. And just taking part in Movember, it's my first time ever growing out facial hair. I'm always clean shaved, and the fact that I have a mustache really annoys me. I really do not like facial hair, but I'm doing it because I want to obviously raise awareness. And I think to move away from men, to move back to men's mental health, being a father as well, I think a lot of adults take a lot of responsibility on, especially becoming fathers, becoming, even young adults who are trying to, make it in a very high competitive environment. The stress can get to you. And, if you're not doing things, such as any physical activities or anything to relieve that stress, if you're going to just stick to yourself and handle all that stress and, do all the work, it's going to get to you at some point. Someone's always going to break. And it's really good to obviously have that awareness in place, and especially have a company that pushes the awareness and have the foundation to obviously deal with it as well. So I think what we're doing right now is really good. And I'm actually sad I didn't get involved in this last year. And yeah, I'm never gonna not grow Movember from now on. So
It's never too late to start getting involved.
I'm this close to keeping it, but I don't know.
For sure. I'm going to say that's a strong mustache for someone who's never grown a mustache before. Everyone listening without the visuals missing out. That your point there, Lewis, around working in kind of a high stress environment leads us really nicely onto that next question, which is all of you guys work in our high performance sales function, and with that sort of job, it does carry additional pressure. So I'd be really interested to hear how you all cope with that stress and that pressure, thinking about your own mental health. Lewis, do you actually want to just kick us off on that one?
Yeah, I think just to de-stress, the way I go about it is I do something that I enjoy, even if it's hanging out with friends or doing something personally, especially for my development. I think since university, something that I've taken up is being very serious into my fitness and health. So just, taking an hour to go to the gym, doing a lunch break or even after work, it really helps you de-stress and just stop thinking about work for a second. And I think the hormones kick in and you feel better about yourself already after a workout. So I think doing something that you like away from work, even if it's half an hour of just reading a book, it's really good. And I think it's something that everyone should definitely take part in.
Perfect. Thank you. Jack, do you want to tell us how you find coping in a high pressure role?
Yeah, well, I've worked in sales for quite a long time now, and it's a question you never really think about, like how do you handle it? And I think Lewis put the nail on the head. I have a lot of stuff I do outside of work, which is nothing to do with it. I play tennis. I sometimes go to the gym, not as often as I probably should. But I've got a little dog as well who, if you're having a down day and I'm working from home, I will literally, regardless of the time, take him into the park and go for a walk, and just seeing him so happy, jumping about, not caring the world, it's infectious. But, obviously, with the role I do as well, I look at the people in the department, and, there's quite a lot of young people in the department, and it's their first experience. So you try and pass on that when it's tough. A lot of time in sales, large majority is out of your hands. There is an element of luck to it. So you can't beat yourself up. If you do the right things, you do it the right way, things will pay off. It will come through. You've just got to keep doing it. So it's then when you get told no, or a deal's not going to come in, it's no discredit to you as a salesperson. It's no discredit to you at your job or anything like that. It's purely just wasn't the right deal for you. Wasn't the right time to catch that person. Move on. It's okay. There's nothing. It's not the end of the world. We keep going. I also used to, when I was really, selling quite a lot, I would just treat it as a bit of a game, because I'm a competitive guy. Play a lot of sports, so I'd just try and compete with myself, or have a little bit of a game with the person next to me, and we'll have a little bit of fun. The loser buys that person a drink afterward that night. So, yeah, that's the advice I do. Just don't take it so seriously. Enjoy it. Sales can be really fun and rewarding, but try and get the enjoyment out of it, and don't take anything to heart.
Great. Thank you. Sam, how do you cope with working in a high pressure sales environment?
So first, I'm just going to touch on a really interesting point that you just said there, Jack, about not taking it too seriously. So when I was sort of first into sales, I did take it really seriously, and I was, honestly, you probably wouldn't ever imagine this of me, but a bit of a short fuse. So when things didn't go my way, I really didn't enjoy it. And one of my first ever bosses said to me, don't take it so seriously. When you joke with people, you're so much better at selling. And that stuck with me ever since. And I obviously still take it seriously, but when you take it less personally, you actually do become better at it. And you sort of seem to drop that pressure a little bit off of yourself, even though we are all still under pressure constantly. And majority of men and salespeople will put more pressure on themselves than they probably need to. It's just because we all want to achieve. You know, we wouldn't be in sales if we didn't want to achieve and beat people and be better than people. So for me, I've always been very good at compartmentalizing things as well. You know, the stuff that is good, I focus on. The stuff that is bad is behind me. Bit cutthroat like that. I'm happy to just drop things and never think about it ever again, because it doesn't matter. You know, look forward, not back is my advice to people constantly. If a deal doesn't come in, yeah, it pisses me off, but move on. Go and get the next one, because why waste energy on something that you can't change? You know, again, I think, Jack, you mentioned it, control the controllables. You know, if you can't control something, it doesn't matter. Just move on to the next thing.
Great. Thank you. Jake, what's your thoughts on that question?
Yeah, I think similar to Lewis, Sam and Jack in regards to fitness. So something that I set up about 10 weeks ago is I set up a football team with all my mates. So every Wednesday after work around 7 to 9, we will play like a 6-a-side game against someone else. And I think everyone who's done like competitive team sports, there's a common saying, like when you're playing football in my case for the 90 minutes or 45 minutes, in my case on a Wednesday, you're not thinking about anything else. And I think obviously sales, we all know it's very stressful at times. Like you can get told no 75 ways, the worst ways possible in one day, and then having to go home and just deal with like everything flying around. You're thinking of certain things, but when you're on like a football field, in my case, it really just sort of everything else doesn't matter. I'm just focusing on scoring goals or making tackles, etc. So that's something that's massively helped me. And then also, I've been doing this since I was about 8 years old, just having sort of support systems in place that you can go to. So every 2 days, I'll call my granddad. I used to call my grandma before she passed and just talk about everything that's been going on. So that was literally like, it used to be school and now it's Leyton, and obviously they have an unbiased view. So it's just anything that's playing on my mind. It's always good to go to someone that you love and care about and they care about you, and just talk about sort of what's going on.
Yeah, fantastic advice. Thank you. And Stephen, do you want to finish us off on that question?
Yeah, I think that really relevant points from everyone there. Really, I think I'm probably one of the older guys on the call at 40, and I don't look it. I know, Sarah, but shame the listeners can't see that. But yeah, I think when I first went, I've been in sales for 20 years, and you put yourself under. We work, like I said, in a high performance team, target driven, KPI'd, work hard, play hard type of mentality. And I think, I think Sam mentioned in the first question, for blokes and young lads in particular, it's quite hard to open up and to show your true self, and that banter comes into play as well. There's a thin line between banter and having a laugh with your colleagues to maybe actually pushing it too far and causing them to be uncomfortable, or not recognizing that actually they are under stress, or they are under challenges outside of work which you can't necessarily see. And I think as I've got older, I think like Sam sort of said, you start to, and Jack mentioned as well, you start to sort of relax a little bit more, because you can only control the controllables at the end of the day, and that goes for life as well. If a client puts the phone down on you, or a prospect puts the phone down on you, hopefully not a client, that'd be horrendous, wouldn't it? But if a prospect puts the phone down on you, maybe it wasn't meant to be. You dust yourself off, you work hard, you pick the phone up, and you go again. And things happen for a reason. And I think we work really hard at Leyton. I think it's a great culture throughout the business, that belonging culture that we all sort of adhere to, whether it's the social aspect or the team aspect, or just some of the nice sort of what I call sort of soft touches throughout the business that we benefit from on a daily, weekly basis. I think just looking out for each other. Don't take things too seriously. We're not on this planet long enough. That work-life balance has got to be important. So just relax, control what you can control, and don't be afraid to put your hand up if you're struggling.
Absolutely, I think that's the key thing, isn't it? It's putting your hand up and relying on others when if you need them, because all of the things that you guys have mentioned here today, like you obviously are all able to help each other with advice and with guidance and with support, so it's asking for it if you need it. So given that 75% of our workforce are male, what other challenges affect the men of Leyton that we should be aware of? Luwis, do you want to kick us off with that?
Did you mean other challenges apart from obviously the work stress?
Yeah, other than kind of working under additional pressure, being in a high performing team.
I mean, there's various things. I think if you're if you're in a relationship, if you're married, even if you're single, I'm not sure what might stress you. Maybe the football team losing might stress you, but there's definitely obviously a lot of outside external things that definitely can affect you. I think if you're in a relationship, if you have kids, there's going to be a lot more responsibilities that put a lot more weight on your shoulders. If there's as an adult, you obviously, even though you carry the responsibilities of yourselves and everyone around you, I think from where I come from, culturally, you also have a bit of responsibility towards from your parents as well, your elders. So there's always going to be a lot of weight on you to take care of yourself and also take care of everyone else around you, even if it's a friend who needs something that currently needing. I think with that, it's very important to firstly, my missus has always told me this quote: when if you're currently in trouble, you have to always remember to put in an airplane, if it's going down, touch wood, the plane doesn't go down or anything, but the oxygen mask, when the oxygen mask drop, you have to always put on your one first before you put on someone else's. I think that's very important in any scenario where you have to take care of yourself before you help anyone else, because you have to be, if you are the underlying glue that holds everything together, you have to always put yourself first before anything else.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant, and really important to bring up the differences across culture and the different things that we all experience outside of work that play into how much stress that we have on our plate and things that we're carrying. Jack, do you want to share anything on that question?
Yeah, I think, like I mentioned before, when I was having like my struggles and stuff like that, it was nothing to do with work. Absolutely nothing. It was actually someone in work, I think someone you spoke to already, was Charlie, who raised the alarm in work, but I don't think Jack's okay. And I'm forever indebted to him for that, because he got Brian to speak to me and Charlie spoke to me, and I was able to, it was kind of like, it's actually okay. And, it was as a person, knowing that you've got that in work, like my friends are there and all that sort of stuff, but actually knowing where you spend the majority of your life and you spend the majority of your time with these people, even if we're not in the same office. I still speak to the majority of the guys on this call, regularly throughout the months and the weeks, etc. And knowing full well, like, I can have a chat with someone. I think, Sam, you said something to me, at the summer party. You asked if I was okay because you knew what had been going on. And it meant a lot, like, that you would do that. So, yeah, I think from my side, work sometimes is a distraction. You can throw yourself into it. Don't, okay? Because that can be the worst thing. You bury something away in your head that's nothing to do with work, and you try and distract yourself with work. Yeah, it can help, but it's like putting a plaster over a big crack. Right? It's not going to last, stay forever. So it's open up, talking. People, I was talking to some of the team in Manchester yesterday, and I said, your managers are asking about your life outside of work. It's not because they're nosy, it's because they care about you and they want to work with you and motivate you. So if you want to buy a house, they want to know how you're getting on with saving for that house. If you want to go on a nice holiday, they want to know if you've paid it off yet. And it's not because they're nosy, it's purely because they care and they want you to be able to do it as soon as you can, and live a great life outside of work. So yeah, I think that's all I have on that point.
Thank you for sharing that. Sam, what do you think, and do you have any personal insight that you want to share on that?
Yeah, I think relationships is probably the biggest thing, really, isn't it? And whether that's a relationship with a friend, relationship with a partner, relationship with family, whatever it might be. And it's not just men that it affects, but I think it's, as we all know, it's men that cover it up the most. So there will be things that happen outside of work, and to touch on sort of what Jack was saying there, it's you're quite lucky in a place like Leyton, where you spend the majority of your time with people at work. Yet I don't really qualify anyone at Leyton as one of my best mates, but I see them all the time. And as I've been here 3 years now, actually I've got some really, really good mates here. And you know, being able to spot something is quite an important thing. And I think it's just as brave to come forward as it is to notice someone is not quite right and going and telling them that, you know, they're not quite right. Because I think people do notice, and I think, oh, bit awkward, I don't really want him to get upset, so I'm just not going to bother. Like, just go and ask the question, because, you know, kind of like what Jack was just saying there, when someone does ask you if you're right, actually it's a bit of weight off your shoulders, and it makes you feel like you're less crazy in your own head because you're the only one that knows something's up. Well, you know, when someone else knows it's a weight off your shoulders. Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's almost giving people permission to have that conversation if they're nervous, because it's a big thing to also bring up that you're not feeling okay, or not everything's all right. So, you know, breaking the ice for that person and facilitating the conversation is a big thing. That's great. Thank you, Sam. Stephen, what are your thoughts?
I mean, just tapping into what Sam said there, I think, you know, it's really, I said it the other day, to be fair, it's really good advice. You know, having managed sales teams myself previously, which have predominantly been male led, predominantly younger guys as well. In my experience, you know, again, whether it's banter, whether it's bravado, you know, if you ask once, you know, how's it going? You okay? You tend to get a very short kind of, you know, chipper answer with no real meaning or depth to it. But my advice would be to anyone, you know, whether it's your friend or your mum, your dad, your cousin, your partner, whoever it may be, don't just ask once, ask twice, because I guarantee nine times out of 10 you might get a slightly different reaction, or even if it's the same answer, it'll be they'll be more open, and, you know, it just like opens the gates for them to elaborate a bit more. So don't always just take it for granted when you ask someone if they're okay and they just go, yeah, fine. You know, just, you know, if you've got an inkling that something isn't quite right, they're not quite themselves, just ask them again. You know, maybe do it quietly or pull them to one side, but you'll be surprised that, you know, that might just be the key to them opening up and sort of letting you know what's actually happening in their head, and maybe, you know, the first step to helping, you know, resolving the issues they've got.
Just to jump in on that, like, you know, when someone is bullshitting you and they go, yeah, I'm right, you know when they're not. So it's actually, I think it's just as brave to push back and say, no, come on, we're going to have this awkward conversation. I don't want to have it, you don't want to have it, but we're going to have it because it's the best thing to do.
Absolutely.
Bring that sales training in, Sam. Overcoming objections. There you go. Go a second round.
Maybe that's why everyone says no to me.
Perfect, guys. Jake, do you want to finish us off on that one?
Yeah, I think there's been some very, very good answers across the board. And I really liked actually asking twice, because as mentioned by Steve, it really does prompt a different response. And yeah, I think personally, if I'm ever going through something, it usually is quite visible in the way I react. I usually, it's quite obvious. But I just wanted to say, like, I've never had this at any of the places that I've worked at. I used to work in kitchens, and that's just a really sort of hot, literally a hot environment to be in. Whereas being here, I just feel comfortable with the friends that I've made so far. I've only been here 3 to 4 months. But I know that if I'm ever going through anything, that I've got really good support systems in place, like the friends that I've made that started with me. I know they'll check if I'm all right, and I would do the same for them. So I just, I feel like I'm belonging here. As mentioned, I haven't been here for long, but just in regards to actually sort of reach out to people, I feel comfortable. And I'm sure, well, I hope that people feel comfortable reaching out to me as well.
I'm sure they do. I think that's really great to hear that you feel so supported, and you're mentioned that you've not been in the business or a seriously significant amount of time. So that's it's really, really positive. So to finish off today, guys, my final question is asking for your advice, really. And if you find yourself in a position where you would need to ask for help in the future, how would you deal with that situation? What advice would you give someone who is struggling right now? Steve, do you want to start us on that?
Yeah, I think people are struggling right now. I think we're probably fortunate nowadays that there's more as much as I'm not a fan of social media and stuff like that, but there's now more readily available outlets and more visibility to support networks and groups and charities and crisis numbers, and there's probably more than there ever has been. So I think, yeah, the real advice I can give people, if you are struggling, going through a tough time, it does get better. It really does get better. I've got 2 young children myself, and I've been on the crest of waves and down at the other end of it as well. And you do come back out the other side. You do come back out stronger. Obviously, not everyone has family. Not everyone has close friends. But there are people, whether it's a stranger, whether it's someone at work, it could be anyone. But just don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't let it get that bad, because as I said, it will always get better. There's always another day, that's for sure. So yeah.
Thank you. Sam, what advice would you have for someone that's struggling?
It's quite hard not to regurgitate all the same answers here, because I think we're all probably thinking the same stuff. But specific to Leyton, we've got the the wellness room, the mental wellbeing room on the Leyton website and everything that we can go to. So just don't be afraid to go and get the help that you think you probably need, because if you think you need it, you probably do. And then one thing that I've not necessarily just for this, but for lots of different reasons, I love this quote from Winston Churchill. It's, if you're going through hell, keep going. Like, don't stop. Why? You don't want to stop there. You want to get out of it as quickly as possible. So the way to do that is to keep moving forward and not sit still and wallow. So that's my advice. Reach out, talk to you. If you don't want to talk to someone professional, talk to a mate. Any real mate is going to sit there and listen to you. And if they don't, then you've probably learned a lot about that mate.
Very true. Lewis, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think when you're going through something, personally, it's obviously very hard to be brave enough to ask for help. I think that's the main thing that people struggle with. But I think consciously you have to always think about everyone around you. If you're hurting, if something happens to yourself, and if you're not around anymore, there's going to be a lot more other people hurting. So it's always you have to always be aware that there's always people that care a lot around you, even if it's at workplace, even if it's your friends or family. There's a lot of people that care about you. Therefore, if you're going through something, you need to always ask for help. It's good to speak to someone. Just speaking to one of our managers, like if I were to go speak to Louis about something that I'm kind of struggling with, he would easily take some time away, go play pool, speak about it, and that itself would just relieve whatever I'm feeling. Same for all the entire HR team that we currently have at Leyton. They're very supportive with every single thing that we're currently dealing with in and outside, and we have those networks, especially at Leyton, and I think that's something we should be really grateful for. And if you're not anyone else who's listening to the call, obviously apart from outside of Leyton, just reach out to anyone. Don't keep it to yourself. The longer you keep it to yourself, the longer the worse it's gonna get.
Completely. Jake, any other thoughts?
Yeah, I think very similar to Lewis. I'm very lucky to have such a great manager, Ollie, and it's someone I really look up to. I see him as my mentor, and I give lots of credit to everything that I've actually been able to achieve so far. And it is more than just the manager, the way he carries himself. And I know if I had, similar like to Lewis, like if I had anything going on, he'd happily take me into a room and we'll discuss. And I know I'd come out of that room feeling a lot better than I did when I walked in that room. So yeah, I just think just literally same with what everyone said, but just speaking to someone, especially that you trust and you like.
Thank you. Jack, gave you the hard job of closing it off and rounding it out, but how would you like to answer that question, or anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think I touched on it earlier. Like, we actually care. I think people care about you. That's what you need to understand about this company. Like, it's like something I preach all the time to people. Like, we care. We want to make sure you're okay. It's nothing to do actually with work or performance. It really isn't. It's purely to do with you as a person. We like you. You're in the business. We work together. Like Sam said there, he's got mates in this company. I think we can all say that, right? I've got people here I'd quite happily, go for drinks with. There's people who've left who I still keep in contact with. because you create them great relationships. So I think the fact that people really care in this company, so please don't worry about speaking. I know it's so tough. It's very easy for me to say that, okay? Because right now everything's great. When things aren't great, it's the biggest mountain to climb to go and speak to someone. It really is, because you in your head you will deem it as failure, soft, or that. It's actually quite the opposite. If you speak to someone, it's brave, it's strong, you're winning. You're climbing up to get where you need to get to. So yeah, and if we're lucky, we've got a great company and where people can really speak to. It's great to hear, that some of the guys on the call, have their manager. Well, all the people on the call probably the managers are someone they trust and can confide in. So yeah, just I think that's the best I can say really. Everyone's said quite a lot.
No, that's perfect, and I really, really appreciate everyone's contribution to that question and every other question. I think that this has been a really interesting insight into Movember, into men's mental health, into men's health, and what that means to all of you, and this culture that we have here at Leyton that helps people feel supported, which is really, really encouraging, is really positive. Is there anything that anyone would like to add before we sign off the podcast?
Men's mental health shouldn't just be about November. It should be about the entire day, every single day. Mental health in general. So always remember that.
Yeah, I think that's perfect.
Well said. Love it.
Perfect way to end, Lewis. Well done. And also wins the award for best tash. Not best arms.
I can't really flex here because I'm in a really small cubicle, but yeah.
I mean, of course, I win for best arms.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
All right, I think that's us, guys. That was great. Thank you all.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Good
Sarah.
work, everyone.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys.
Well done,
Thanks,
really
Sarah.
good work. What a special episode. Thank you again to our panel, Jack, Sam, Lewis, Steve and Jake. And thank you all for listening along. I hope you all took as much away from that conversation as I did. Before I jump into my usual outro, I want to reiterate, there is a lot of support out there for you. And if you are struggling and need support, please reach out to someone around you. I promise that person would rather have an uncomfortable conversation with you than miss out on the chance. There are a lot of free resources available if you'd like to talk to someone anonymously, and I'll include contact details for Samaritans and Shout Crisis text line in the show notes below. We'll be back in a few weeks' time with our next episode. But until then, if you're one of the members in our talent community and you're interested in finding out more about what the future might look like at Leyton, please reach out to one of us here in the talent acquisition team. I'll put my contact details in the description below. Or check out our careers page for the roles that we have live currently. We'll be back in a few weeks. Thank you again to the panel for sharing their stories, and thank you all for listening in. This has been the Life at Leyton podcast.